the nonlinear structure of it, and what the movie chooses to spend time on, I think is all wrong. It really does not aid the point they're trying to make, because it's not just a straight up retelling of the history. It's not really a story about the friendship of these two people. It's not really a story about how important this bar, the Alto Knights, was. It's not really about the decline of the mafia. It's kind of all of those things at the same time. And I think because of that, none of the pieces have enough oxygen to really breathe. And when we do get a cool sequence like towards the end, it's not built up properly enough to really have the effect it's supposed to. And I think it would have with a more traditional structure. This seems like a failed experiment to me, where I appreciate a movie that tries to do something different, but it still has to work. And I don't think this worked. I think each individual scene looks pretty, looks like a proper mafia movie. They went to great lengths to get the props and the clothing and the cars and the weapons and all of it. It at least feels like a mafia movie, right? Like they did not cut any corners here. It's not cheap. Doesn't look ugly. I think the entire thing is just in the structure. And they decided to tell the story in an unconventional way, which is fine if it works. And I don't think it had to be this way. I think the reason it doesn't work is because it's not focused enough. I think it does not pick a lane and then kind of pick scenes or moments from these people's lives to make the point, right? So, for example, one of the ways in which this could have worked is they make a point a couple of times about how close friends Vito and Frank were, right? If this movie was about their friendship and about how that friendship was shaped by the decisions they made, about how they ended up in different places, about how it was shaped by the times in which they lived, I think you could have told a story about this. But then you would have had to do it very differently. You would have had to cut a whole bunch of stuff that is not related to that. And then when Vito kind of orders a hit on Frank, it should have stung. And it didn't, in part because of the structure, because the assassination attempt, I think, is one of the first scenes. And at this point, we don't know who anybody is, and so it doesn't have any impact. But for Frank and Vito, it has the impact that they used to be friends, and they tried to make it work, and they just couldn't. And so now it's a power struggle. And so now Vito has to kill his friend, otherwise he will not make it, right? That is a really tragic moment. And it fell completely flat for me because the assassination should be the climax of that, right? That is when it becomes real. Because it happens so early in the movie, we don't yet know the relationship between them. And so I think if you wanted to make a movie like this with a structure like this, you would have had to take the moments, the kind of milestones in these people's lives, and then rearrange them in a way that made your point. And I just don't think it did that.